Julia Laughlin. I'm the Oklahoma County Horticulture Educator, and I developed a set of tips for you to help you win horticulture exhibits at the county or state fair. This quick little demonstration will give you some tips that all judges are looking for, and I'll also give you some ideas for how to put your specimens together for your exhibit so that you can win the blue ribbon in horticulture or maybe even take home the grand champion. So let's have a look. Everybody wants to win the blue ribbon. If you're entering horticulture crops, I want to give you some tips that will help you win. Some of these tips I've gained from years of being a judge at state fairs and county fairs, and some of them are really just reiterating what's in the fair book. But I really believe that some of it will help you, whether you're a novice gardener or an expert gardener or a beginning gardener, gardening with your children. Maybe you're that person that gets the biggest watermelon every year at the state fair, and you don't necessarily need a lot of tips, but I'm going to try to give you a few to help you. So what the judges are looking for, it's always going to be the guidelines. They're going to look very, very closely at the guidelines, and they want to make sure that you've added your entry into the correct class, or you may get disqualified. So the most important thing to do is look at the guidelines, read them once, read them twice, read them again before you take your entry, and then make sure that you're in the correct class. The other thing that judges are going to look for automatically is high quality. So keep that in mind, that quality is key in any horticulture competition. During the county fair, the guidelines are really what the judges use. They're going to follow it very, very specific, like I just said. Notice a few things. Usually only one exhibit in each class is allowed, but read and see if that's true in the particular exhibit you're placing your specimen in. If you put more than one exhibit in a class, they will eliminate the additional ones, and you don't know which one they're going to eliminate. So really be sure to stick with only one entry if that's all you can put into that class per individual. Make sure your entries meet the guideline, like on the specimen quality. If it says 3 white potatoes, use 3 white potatoes. They're also going to be looking at the presentation, that they're submitted the way the guidelines recommend, and that it's the correct type or color that it's asking for in that particular class. If you don't meet these guidelines, you'll definitely not be eligible for first place, and there's a decent chance that you'll get disqualified. So it's really, really important to look at those recommendations. If you're entering produce, here's some really important things to understand. Cleanliness is important. Take time to wipe that down, that squash or that pepper or that tomato. You don't have to use any cleaning agents on them necessarily, but water and a clear water and a paper towel will help you get dirt or soil off of the particular piece of produce and off of the stem as well. Make sure that the particular entry is free of injury or pests. You don't want to let the judges see any of that, even if it means removing some leaves or something. Or when you're selecting your specimen, make sure that you don't have any pest damage on it, and choose another specimen if you feel like you do. Here's a really important one. It should be prime eating condition. You want to harvest it in the stage that it's recommended to harvest for eating, so not early and not late. And this one is super important. Uniformity. Uniformity is one of the most important things, and I'll show you in a second how judging looks at uniformity. You want to make sure that your specimen is true to type. Don't put a jalapeno in a category for a habanero. Make sure that you're in true to type and that what you're displaying is what it's called for within that class. Make sure you use the correct specimen number, like I mentioned before. If it calls for 5, have 5 on the plate. And labeling, make sure you're in the correct class and you've labeled it as such. Okay, here's an example of okra, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. Notice on the 1st place that one thing is the uniformity.
Also, they're blemish free, which is really nice. They were probably super fresh and harvested right before the fair. But another thing to notice is even the stem ends are uniform. It makes it look more attractive and therefore more uniform. And there's a little bit of what we call handle on that stem. If you look at number two, they're not uniform, and some of them actually are missing their stem ends. Number three, there's quite a bit of difference in uniformity from the smallest to the largest. And number four, the same thing. Now, okra, some people feel like okra should be harvested in the number four stage, but a more accurate stage would be 4 inches. And so this is something the judge would be looking for as well. Cherry tomatoes. Notice first place, second place, third place, and fourth place. On the first place tomatoes, notice how they're extremely uniform in color and size. Number two, the color is uniform, but the size is quite different. Number three, it's even a larger discrepancy in the variation of uniformity. And in number four, it looks like the tomatoes didn't even necessarily come from the same plant because the shape is so different. Number one is a blue ribbon winner. In this slide, look at the habaneros, first place, second place, third place, fourth place. The first place habaneros are extremely uniform, and in addition, look at those stems, cut to the same length, harvested at the same length, blemish free. Number two, the peppers are nearly the same in color and in size, but not as uniform, and there's blemishes. Number three, very much difference in size, not very uniform. And number four is the same case. So really pay attention to harvesting and uniformity. On the home garden food baskets, be sure to choose a nice looking basket or box. In our fair book in Oklahoma County, we recommend 5 to 9, or we require 5 to 9 species of mature fruits and or veggies grown by the exhibitor, and the more the prettier. In our book, it says 5 to 9, so you want to stay within our guidelines of 5 to 9 different species. Make sure that they're mature, ready to eat, and that they've been grown by the exhibitor, nothing from the grocery store. The more the prettier, but if you only have 5 types in your garden, only use 5 types. If you have 9 types of ready to eat veggies, use all 9 more. It's more colorful and more pretty, and it shows off more varieties. Have enough of each species to show the quality. So instead of 2 or 3 green beans, make sure that you have 1 to 2 cups. That would be enough to really show the quality of the species. And multiples in uniform quality are going to really catch the judge's eye. Sometimes certain products are not allowed, so check that in the guidelines. Paper, straw, and cloth can be added to the basket, but in our county, but no artificial plant materials. Make sure the veggies are the stars, and be sure and read the guidelines for your particular fair. All right, cut flowers. Be sure they're insect and disease free, that they're clean. You can brush them off if you need to. Uniformity is a huge factor. Again, make sure they're the same variety and the same size blossom if possible. Make sure they're grown by the exhibitor. So don't try to slip in something that is commercial. If you know your varietal name, like bubblegum petunia or some other particular varietal name, include that information for the judge. When the judge is judging, they will generally give priority if 2 specimens are equal. Or entries are equal, they will give priority to the one that has named the variety. That's just a general rule that judges do. On floral arrangements, make sure you don't use any commercially grown cut flowers. They should be your flowers. Do not add accessories to your design if they're not listed in the fair book. That will get you disqualified. If colors are specified, stick to those colors. In other words, if it says orange, reds, and yellows, be sure not to throw any blue in there. Depending on the fair book, use dried materials only or fresh materials only unless they specify both. Usually they'll say dried materials, fresh materials, or it may say dried and fresh materials allowed. Be sure and read that, because you can again get disqualified if you mix those 2 things up. If the container is specified, like must be in a container is a coffee cup, do not deviate. Make sure, because again, you can get disqualified. Potted plants and houseplants must be grown by the exhibitor for at least 3 months in most fairs, and definitely in Oklahoma County. Make sure there's no signs of insect or disease. Clean up any dead leaves. Be sure and watch your pot size. If the pot size exceeds the limit that's in the fair book, you will be disqualified. So be sure not to exceed that limit. See fact on terrariums. We have a fact sheet number 6438 at osufacts.okstate.edu that will tell you all the how-to steps on building a terrarium. Once you bring that terrarium to the county fair, remember these tips. It needs to be covered, and the judge is going to be looking for the compatibility and the types of plants within the terrarium. In other words, are they full sun plants? Are they shade plants? Are they high water requiring plants? Are they low water requiring plants? Some tips on arranging: if you will put the larger plants in the center and the back, or smaller ones near the front or the edge, so you can see the larger ones in the back or in the center. Make sure the plants are in proportion to the container, not too big, not too small. Notice too that in many fair books, they may specify woodland or tropical or another theme, so make sure you follow the theme. Dish gardens. Again, there's a fact sheet number 6451 at osufacts.okstate.edu. Plants should have similar cultural needs like watering and light, just like on terrariums. So succulents should go together, tropicals should go together. Put the taller at the back or the center, and creeping or spiller ones over the edge. In terrariums, you can't really use a spiller because there isn't an edge for them to go over, but you can on a dish garden. You can use something that's actually going to spill over the edge. It looks very attractive. Be sure the plants are in proportion to each other and also to your container. And make sure your container is attractive. It really will make a difference if it's something pretty, because it will catch the judge's eye. Here's some final tips. Always harvest your cut flower, your produce, any horticulture crop at the last minute possible for ideal ripeness, but do it at the last minute for freshness. So in other words, you want them to be at peak, but you also want them to be fresh. So harvest them as late as you can while they're peaking. Cleanliness is really important. Don't forget to take time to wipe off those peppers, wipe off those pears, and make sure they're clean. And then think unique. Judges love something surprising or different. So here's good luck to you at the county fair or state fair that you attend, that you get that blue ribbon.